Well, the Minister for Mental Health and Ageing, Mark Butler, joined me from our Parliament House studio just a short time ago. Mark Butler, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tony. Good to be with you.
Can you explain first why the heavy concentration of funds in mental illness for young people?
Well, mental illness is unlike really any other chronic disease. Chronic disease tends to emerge in middle age and beyond. 2/3 of all mental disorders emerge before the age of 21. Fully 25% emerge before the age of 12. So we know if we're going to prevent people from spiralling down into very serious disability through mental illness, we have to intervene early. What we also know, though, is that young people, particularly adolescents and people in their early 20s, don't often feel comfortable going to mum and dad's GP. So we have to design youth-specific services around things that they'll feel comfortable with.
Yeah, we've spoken to Patrick McGorry in the past about the critical need for early intervention to catch and treat psychosis in young people and adolescents. But as you've just pointed out, you're also talking about catching and treating disorders in very young children. I think you mentioned 0 to 12-year-olds. Is there evidence of widespread mental illness in children at that age?
Well, there is. I mean, the evidence is emerging. It's at a younger stage, forgive the pun, at a younger stage than the evidence around teenagers and early 20-year-olds. But our advisory group presented very clear evidence that the 0 to 12 age was a very important age. As young as 3, we know that infants can present signs of emerging behavioural disorders, which if they're not caught in time, they're not treated, can become a very serious problem in primary school and develop into quite serious mental illness in adolescence.
Have I understood you correctly that as part of the new program, all Australian children will be checked at the age of 3 for signs of mental illness?
Well, the Commonwealth, our government introduced a healthy kids check at 4 years old. It obviously is a voluntary check. It is tied in many ways to the Family Tax Benefit Part A, but it obviously is a voluntary check. At the moment it takes place at 4 and it tends to check things like hearing, vision, physical health, but the very clear advice to us was twofold. Firstly, the check should be brought back to 3 years old, and secondly, we should broaden the check to incorporate social and emotional well-being development, because 3 is an incredibly important time in the development of a child's life.
So this is voluntary. I mean, there's no question of this being a compulsory program.
Well, yes, it's voluntary. We won't be kicking down the front doors of young families' houses. This is voluntary. We will promote the benefits of this to families. There has been very clear advice from child psychiatrists and from paediatricians about the benefits of this. This is something that we want to build over the next 12 months, get an expert group to design the different elements of the Healthy Kids Check. But we think that this is a very important advance in trying to build our evidence base, our capacity to identify early infants and children who are exhibiting developmental difficulties, and find the capacity in the system to provide them and their families the support that they need.
So, but what happens if you find an emerging disorder in a 3-year-old child? What happens next?
Well, there are mental health professionals who are trained to work with children and infants aged 0 to 5. This is really an extension of what we've known now for some years about the importance of the brain's development in the first 5 years. In many ways, an extension about what we've known for some years now in early childhood education. It makes sense, it seems to me, that the same issues arise in a broader health sense, and we need to ensure that we have a system that is designed around those important developmental stages of a child's life and an adolescent's life.
But do they focus on the child, or do they focus on the parents?
Well, they've got to wrap around the whole family. Adolescents are different. They're starting to become more independent. School and their independence are probably the important context for an adolescent. But family is so central to 0 to 5-year-olds and to primary school aged children. So what we've done, for example, in this budget is to double the number of family mental health support services, a service that's run under the FAXIA department.